Hello, everyone. I hope that you are doing well. We are going to continue going through the book of Daniel. When last I uploaded videos, we went through, I uploaded 2. We went through Daniel 10, which was setting up for the rest of the book. It was setting up the language and some of the imagery that we would go through in the next 2 chapters, which were Daniel 11 and 12, which are part of the same vision. It was one final end times vision. However, because there's so much in there, I wanted to do these things separately. And in the second video that I uploaded last night, the first most of Daniel 11 was gone through. I had that graph, the screen share, or I guess it was a chart more than a graph. But it had the way that Daniel 11 is kind of sectioned off, where it had the transition from the Persian Empire, Medo-Persian Empire, to the Greek Empire. And then you see Antiochus Epiphanes referenced, and then you see the transition from that third empire into the fourth empire. That is where we're going to pick it up, which is the transition to the fourth and final kingdom, the fourth and final beast. That is the beast of Revelation. And that is where we begin this video, which is in verse 36 through the end of the chapter, Daniel 11. Now, part of the reason that we know that this is going to relate to the end times and not to something historical is because Daniel was really, really upset in this vision, and it was specifically stated that this is what will befall Israel in the latter days. And naturally, if he's given a vision of the fourth beast, who is going to be supremely more evil than the other ones, and he's going to be given power to literally trample and kill in a way that had not previously been given. This is why the events of the midpoint of the week with regard to the flight of the remnant and their preservation in the wilderness for a time times half a time become so imperative. This is why we actually see Michael doing that in Daniel 12. Because if that wasn't done, there should no flesh be saved. That is how dire these latter days for Israel are, and how gracious our God is to, even in that horrible time period, preserve a remnant according to the election of grace. And that is what Daniel 12 is going to talk about, is from the events where this fourth kingdom, fourth beast comes onto the scene. Through the end, we're given us a precise day count. That is 1,260 days. Where we catch up to this fourth beast in the sequence of events moving through the empires in Daniel 11, again, from Persia to Greece to the fourth kingdom, is with the Abomination of Desolation. If you have had an opportunity to watch that previous video, you'll know that I ended talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, who was also, when we went through Daniel 8, we learned that he is a foreshadow of the fourth beast. He was a little horn that came up among the 4 horns of the Greek Empire. A little horn who caused, at the Second Temple, an abomination of desolation. That was the movement from, or the foreshadow of, the third kingdom, or the fourth beast of the fourth kingdom, via what would happen with the third beast in the third kingdom. You'd have a little horn and an abomination of desolation. And a vile guy. We learned that he's vile from Daniel 11. He is more vile than the rest of the Greek Empire guys. However, the foreshadow of that is that there's going to be a similarity in type and shadow, in form and fashion, of the fourth beast in the fourth kingdom. The last guy in the 70th week. He's also called a little horn. Daniel 7 calls him a little horn, but he comes up among the 10 horns, the beast and the 10 kings of Revelation. He's got nothing to do with the Greek Empire, just that he's also called a little horn. He's given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. That's your abomination of desolation. because the fourth beast also in the midst of the week is prophesied to cause an abomination of desolation. Perhaps not the same exact thing that Antiochus Epiphanes did in the Greek Empire, but the end result will be the same, is that there will be a cessation of the sacrificial system and there will be a flight out of Jerusalem as a result of that. So where we left off in Daniel 11 was talking about Antiochus Epiphanes being vile and causing an abomination of desolation. Transition into the fourth beast, who is, per Daniel 8, even more vile, in so much as he puts the other three vile guys, the other three beasts that came before him, to shame because he is so vile. He also will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. And there it is where we catch up to this fourth beast, this fourth kingdom of Daniel's prophecies in Daniel 11:36. This is where the transition from the third empire to the fourth occurs, from the third beast to the fourth beast occurs. Having been foreshadowed by Antiochus of the third empire, we now come to the fourth beast of the fourth empire. This is where we meet the book of Revelation again. I am going to, before I even get to this prophecy in Daniel, I'm going to do a lot of talking about this to make sure that we know that we're on the same page with what we're talking about, who we're talking about, and when he gets there. Because this is going to bring us into the conversation about Prince Lawful versus King Lawless. When you know when the fourth beast gets there, you know that they're not the same guy, and they can't be. It's not even a maybe. It's a they can't be the same. So let's talk about this. Daniel 7 in the night visions, when he's given the visions of the lion, the bear, and the leopard, and then the fourth beast that's diverse from all the rest of them. Let's go through this to do a little bit of setup work, because we're going to encounter that type of similarity in Daniel 11. So Daniel 7's night visions. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. The four beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. My nose is running. I'm sorry, it's cold. So if I keep sniffing, that's why. It's like in the 40 degrees here right now. It's cold, and I'm sitting here trying not to shiver. I don't have socks on, but I don't want socks on. I have coffee next to me and like a really big sweater on because I'm cold. So if I sniff, that's why, because I'm cold. My nose is running. Anyway, the four beasts. We are introduced in the book of Revelation. Naturally, if it's an end times thing, we're going to find a similarity in the book of Revelation. Revelation 13:1. I stood upon the sand of the sea, saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. I saw the beast, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Okay, so this is imagery that we're introduced in the night visions about Daniel 7. We're introduced to here in Daniel 7. So you have the beast rising up out of the sea, Revelation 13:1. They are similar and yet diverse. The similarity is like they're all of the same kind of mind. The beasts themselves are different. The first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. That's Babylon. Now remember in Revelation 13:2, it said the lion, the leopard, and the bear were present on this fourth beast, and the dragon gave the fourth beast his power, his seat, and great authority. So the lion, the bear, and the leopard are in Daniel's night visions as the first 3 beasts. Behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. This is the Medo-Persian Empire. Raised itself up on one side. It had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, this is the Greek Empire, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. This is imagery that ties us to Revelation 8 and 10, which is the ram and the goat. The goat had the big horn in the middle of its eyes. That's Alexander the Great. That horn was broken off, and 4 horns came up in the place of it. And out of those 4 horns came another little horn who was Antiochus Epiphanes, who foreshadowed the 4th beast that we're about to learn about. This is why you see the leopard representing the Greek Empire have 4 heads. Talking about the 4 horns that Antiochus Epiphanes comes up out of. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceeding. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Enter the reason that Daniel is mourning for 21 days. He refuses to eat or drink or anoint his head with oil because he's given a vision of the 4th beast that's going to lay waste to his people in the end times. That's clearly not going to be something that causes joy for him. And except Michael, the great prince, which stands for the children of thy people, get a remnant out, there should no flesh be saved. That is how dire the circumstance is for the Jews in this end times vision that Daniel was given in chapters 11 and 12. It's not going to be a great time for them. Daniel understood that, and that was why he was so upset. Talking about the 10 horns, I consider the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. This is the 4th beast. Before whom were 3 of the first horns, the lion, the bear, and the leopard, plucked up by the roots, the 3 kingdoms that came before and went. Behold, in this horn, this little horn that comes up among the 10, were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Blasphemies. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000s times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, the blasphemies. I beheld even till the beast was slain, his body was destroyed and given to the burning flame. The little horn that comes up among the 10 is the 4th beast. This, again, we go back to Revelation. And I'm doing this to make sure, like I said, that we're all on the same page, that we know what we're talking about, what we're looking at here. I stood upon the sand of the sea, saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, his feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. This is the one who will be judged for speaking blasphemies against God. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly head wound was healed. All the world wondered after the beast. They worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? There was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And there is the identifying language that we have to tell us when this beast, this 4th beast, this 4th kingdom becomes present at the midpoint of the 70th week. He commits the abomination of desolation, which Daniel prophesies to occur in the midst of the week. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. That is, he's given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and then given power to continue 42 months, which is the second half of the 70th week. So this beast rising up out of the sea in Revelation 13 is a midpoint of the week, or near to the midpoint of the week marker. We'll see precisely when he gets there, when he ascends out of It comes up out of the sea, rise up out of the sea. We will see that from Revelation 11. We will see from Revelation 9 the first point by which he could rise up out of the sea. And this comes from understanding that we gain from Revelation 17. That fourth beast who heads the fourth kingdom, where is he located presently? I say presently because John was writing this, he was given this revelation in 95 AD, which is the present dispensation. Remember that Revelation is divided into three parts, right? The things which thou hast seen, the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. Now, this is written in the chapters which comprise the hereafter, meaning it is a prophetic event. We are in the same dispensation as John was in 95 AD, which means it is not part of the things which are, which is important to note because when it says the beast which thou saw was and is not and yet shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. That tells you that because there are three time markers referenced, past, present, and future, and he is marked as is not, right? The things which are. In the present dispensation, this guy's not a factor. When the present catches up to the prophetic, when the hereafter begins and the prophecy part begins, that is when he becomes a factor, yet not at the beginning. We'll see this from language in Revelation 17. Remember Revelation 13 in our marker to the midpoint of the 70th week, where he's given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies and then given power to continue 40 and 2 months. So you know that the beast is at least relevant by the midpoint because he does things that Daniel says are going to occur in the midst of the week. But how much before that point does he become pertinent to prophecy? The beast that thou sawest, the fourth beast, the fourth kingdom. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. They that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. That is specifically what we were told in Revelation 13. They worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. They worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And then there was given him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies and power to continue 40 and 2 months. This is all being linked to the midpoint of the 70th week. So again, we go back to the fact that Revelation is divided into three parts, right? The things which thou hast seen past, the beast that was, the things which are, the beast is not, and the things which shall be hereafter and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go about his destruction. So in the hereafter, in the part of prophecy that hasn't started yet, it's Revelation 4 and beyond, that is when the hereafter is going on, when the prophecy part of Revelation is going on, that is when the beast shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Okay. Is the bottomless pit referenced at all in the book of Revelation outside of Revelation 17? Yes. Okay. So, since that's where the beast is, and he's going to ascend out of it some point prior to the midpoint of the 70th week, this should give us our indication of when he could possibly ascend out of it based on when the bottomless pit is opened. Is it presently opened? No. Is it opened in conjunction with seal 1, rider on the white horse, one who comes in the place of Christ? No. It's also not open during seal 2, seal 3, seal 4, seal 5, seal 6, seal 7, trumpet 1, 2, or 3, or 4. The beast that is presently in the bottomless pit, who is the one that will commit the abomination of desolation and cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease? The fourth beast of the fourth kingdom cannot possibly do any of the things he's prophesied to do while he is still in the bottomless pit. And the bottomless pit is not opened until trumpet 5. which of the 21 judgments is number 12, almost halfway through. No, 7 plus 5 is 12 out of 21. So it's a little bit more than halfway through the judgments. Anyway, not quite to the midpoint of the week. The midpoint of the week is trumpet 7. So trumpet 5 is when the bottomless pit is opened. That is where the fourth beast is located, which is why he is not and yet shall ascend out of it. It has to be opened first. Revelation 9:1. The fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto earth, and to him was given a key of the bottomless pit. This is the first point by which he could ascend out of the bottomless pit and become relevant to the Revelation storyline, the 70th week storyline. This is not when he actually does ascend out of it. We will read about that also. This is the first point by which he could ascend out of it to become relevant to the plot line. He opened the bottomless pit. There you go. And there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. There came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. It was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. In those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. The shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold. Their faces were as the faces of men. They had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron. The sound of their wings was the sound of chariots, as many horses running to battle, and they had tails like unto scorpions, and their stings was in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. They had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go about his destruction. The king of the locusts, the angel of the bottomless pit, your fourth beast, is named in Revelation 9:11, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. That's your beast. That's your fourth beast, who is said to ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And all the world will wonder after him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. When does he ascend out of the bottomless pit? Revelation 11. Just before the midpoint of the week, amidst the sixth trumpet. Remember, the seventh trumpet is the midpoint. Amidst the sixth trumpet, bottomless pit is open in trumpet 5. Here we are, Revelation 11, just prior to the midpoint of the week, after the bottomless pit has been opened. There's a measurement for the temple. Rise, measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. The holy city shall they tread underfoot 40 and 2 months. Second part of the 70th week. During the fourth beast's reign, the fourth kingdom. I will give power unto my 2 witnesses from the beginning of the week to the point where the outer court is going to be given unto the Gentiles. They have a ministry 1,260 days. That is from day 1 through day 1,260. They shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are 2 olive trees, 2 candlesticks, standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. Why do you suppose the beast has the appearance of a deadly head wound? Because he tries to harm and does actually overcome and kill the 2 witnesses, so it appears that he died as well. Except he didn't, because he's a spiritual being, the angel of the bottomless pit. He can't die, which is why his body will be destroyed and given to the burning flame after, because he can't go to Hades. He goes right to the lake of fire. They have the power, the 2 witnesses have the power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. when they shall have finished their testimony. Their time to prophesy is 1,260 days. That includes a verbal and a nonverbal testimony. The verbal testimony is 1,256 and a half days. The beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit. Revelation 17. The beast that was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. And all the world's going to wonder after him whose names are not written in the book of life, because the deadly head wound gets healed, which means the combat with the two witnesses has occurred. And as a result of him living when no one else could, they wonder, they marvel after him. Who's like unto him? Who was able to make war with him? Because these guys who killed everybody else who tried to kill them didn't succeed in killing him. So he must be the greatest. All the world will wonder after the beast whose names are not written in the book of life when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. He will be, because he's going to ascend out of the bottomless pit, said to do so right here in Revelation 11 amidst the sixth trumpet. When they shall have finished their testimony, 1,256 and a half days into the 70th week. The beast, the fourth beast, Revelation's beast, Daniel's fourth beast, that ascendeth, written in the present tense of the Greek, meaning it's occurring at that time, shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified, Jerusalem. And because the world hates the two witnesses so much, they are overjoyed. They of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see the dead bodies 3.5 days, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from God entered them. Day 1260. They stood on their feet, great fear fell upon them which saw them. They heard a great voice out of heaven saying unto them, come up hither, and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. In the same hour was there a great earthquake. The 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain in men 7,000. The remnant were affrighted, gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe was past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Sixth trumpet is over, seventh trumpet comes, and the seventh angel sounded. There were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ. He shall reign forever and ever. Thou hast taken thee thy great power and hast begun to reign. Now is come salvation and strength, the kingdom of our God, the power of his Christ. Why? Because King Beast thinks that it's his time, and King Jesus from heaven is saying, no, it's not. Let me show you why not. 3.5 years later, King Jesus comes back to defeat King Beast and sets up his own kingdom as a replacement per Daniel 2. This is the sequence of events that we need to understand about Daniel 11. Daniel 11's introduction to the fourth beast and the fourth kingdom and when that occurs. He places it in conjunction with the midpoint of the 70th week and tells you specifically about the abomination of desolation. Because remember, in Revelation 13, he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and then power was given over him to continue 42 months. This is where we meet the beast in Revelation 11:36. He's called the king. Did we learn about him being called the king in Revelation? The king of the locusts, the angel of the bottomless pit, who hath his name in the Hebrew tongue Abaddon, in the Greek his name Apollyon. That is the fourth beast named. His location is named in Revelation. His name is named in Revelation, and you are specifically told when he ascends out of his present location and for what purpose. To overcome and kill the two witnesses and to gain glory from all of the people who then begin to worship him. The seventh trumpet is key to understanding the sequence of events also. The finishing of the mystery of God is the first thing that was prophesied to occur in the days of the voice of the seventh angel when he shall begin to sound the seventh trumpet. The mystery of God shall be finished as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets. Without getting too far into this, we need to establish the sequence of events tied to the seventh trumpet to understand why the abomination of desolation occurs. The first thing that Revelation prophesies that will happen when the seventh trumpet sounds is the finishing of the mystery of God. That is the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide, as Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. When ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation, etc. So the preaching of the everlasting gospel comes directly before the abomination of desolation, the flight of the remnant, which tells you that the abomination of desolation is a reactionary event to the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide. This is also Revelation 14 sequence of events as given by the three angels that fly through the midst of the heaven and their different warnings. The first, this is seventh trumpet specific. This is the finishing or the revelation of the mystery of God, the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of the heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, the earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. This is worship God, fear God, and worship Jesus Christ. That is what the first angel says. The second angel says Babylon will be imminently destroyed, which is ironic because that's when the kingdom moves, or the center, the hub moves from Jerusalem, which was just desolated because the people fled when the temple was desolated, and moves to Babylon. Zechariah 5 tells us all about that, where the woman will be established upon her own base in the land of Shinar. The woman being wickedness, the woman from Revelation 17, also the woman riding the beast. That's Babylon. So there's a warning given from the second angel. After the everlasting gospel is preached, is fear God and worship Jesus Christ. Then there's a prophecy given that Babylon's going to be destroyed. It's like, don't even bother. Don't even bother setting up shop there because it's going to be torn down. And then the third angel flies through the midst of the heavens, saying, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascendeth, perpetual present tense, ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night who worship the beast, his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Because remember, all the world's wondering after the beast, who is like him, who's able to make war with him. It says, fear God, worship Jesus Christ. Don't give a second thought to the beast. Certainly don't worship him, his image, or receive his mark, because you're going to die. Even if you're physically alive, you will die spiritually, and you will have no rest from the point where you do any of those things forevermore, for all of eternity. Which tells you, when you look at Revelation 13 sequence, all the world starts wondering after him and worshiping him. And then they start to make an image to him, and the false prophet causes them to receive a mark in their hand or in their forehead, lest they be able to buy or sell. And if they don't do any of those things, they're going to die. This is all placed at the midpoint of the 70th week. The abomination of desolation is a reactionary event to the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide. The angel flies through the midst of the heavens, saying, fear God and worship Jesus Christ. And what does the beast do? The son of perdition, the one who ascends out of the bottomless pit, he goes into the temple, declares himself to be above all that is called God or that is worshipped. The angel just said do. He's like, worship me instead. So that he sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The abomination of desolation is reactionary to the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide, which is the first thing prophesied to occur at the sounding of the seventh trumpet midpoint of the week. This is where we catch up to Revelation 11:36. The king of the locusts, the angel of the bottomless pit, named Abaddon Apollyon, the beast, the fourth beast, who's going to overcome and kill the two witnesses, is going to open his mouth and blaspheme against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven, pinpointed the midst of the week, and then give him power to continue 40 and 2 months. The king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, shall speak of marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done, which is to say, shall be given power to continue 42 months. This is where Revelation meets Daniel in Daniel 11:36, surrounding the beast and the midpoint of the 70th week. Now, the conversation that I wanted to have now, hopefully the need for it to be very brief, is that Prince Lawful, the one confirming the covenant, and the beast who causes the sacrifice and the oblation to cease and for the overspreading of abomination makes it desolate, cannot be the same. The rider on the white horse, the one who comes in the place of Christ, who we refer to as the Antichrist, is Revelation 6:1 and 2. That's the start of the 70th week, pinpointed by imagery of the bow. In the book of Revelation, a significant part of the imagery, a significant portion of the imagery is referring to Old Testament references. The bow is where you know that the covenant confirmation has occurred. I'll read this in Revelation 6:1 and 2. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse. He that sat on him had a bow. A crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. The anti, or the one who comes in the place of, white horse. We know that Jesus, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, is coming back on a white horse in Revelation 19. In Revelation 6, he that sat on the horse had a bow. The first time a bow is referenced is in Genesis 9. We'll start in verse 13. This was after they disembarked the ark, after the flood was done, and they were setting up stones to offer an offering to God. Actually, I'll start in verse 11. I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. God said, "This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations." What's the token of the covenant that God's making with them, never to destroy the world with water again? I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature and all flesh. The water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. The bow, first reference in Genesis 9, is a token of a covenant. In Genesis 9, it was the Noahic covenant. In Revelation 6:1 and 2, it is the Daniel 9:27 covenant. This is how we know that the 70th week starts with the opening of seal 1 because of the bow. The bow is Old Testament language to reference that the covenant is now in place. And the end times covenant is Daniel 9:27. Now, some people may say, well, it could be the new covenant. Nope, that's referenced by the rainbow already in Revelation 4 and Revelation 10. The rainbow imagery in Revelation represents the new covenant. The bow in Revelation 6 is the Daniel 9:27 covenant. So how could the rider on the white horse, the one who comes in the place of Christ, be the same as the beast, who's the fourth beast of Daniel, the fourth kingdom of Daniel, when the beast isn't even released out of the bottomless pit until trumpet 6? That means the guy confirming the covenant, the one who comes in the place of Christ, the one who comes with the bow, a crown was given unto him, because what did Jesus say in John 5? I am come in my Father's name, ye receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him ye will receive. So the one who comes, Revelation 6, and the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, Revelation 13, could not possibly be the same. And this is why Daniel uses different language to represent them, because they are not the same. Thus, he would not refer to them as the same. This is why one is called a prince and the other is called a king. Daniel 9. Daniel refers to Jesus as Messiah, the prince, versus the one who comes in the place of him as the prince that shall come. In Daniel 9:26, he's the one who shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Not Messiah the prince, but the prince that shall come, referring to some guy who's going to bear some similarity to the people who destroyed the city and sanctuary in 70 AD. Daniel 9's prophecy reads as thus, differentiating Christ and the one who comes in the place of Christ, both referred to as princes. After 62 weeks shall, actually I'll start just with the whole of the prophecy. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince, capital P, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, the people of the prince that shall come. That's your Daniel 9:27 covenant confirmation. Revelation 6:1 and 2, the rider on the white horse, the one who comes in the place of Christ. That's prince, lawful. Now, why do we say lawful? Well, because what's he going to be doing? He's going to be reinstituting the covenant relationship, which if you read the whole of Daniel 9, is an old covenant relationship, the Mosaic law with the temple and the reinstitution of a sacrificial system. Understanding that Ezekiel's end times vision is specifically about the millennial kingdom, the one who comes in the place of Christ would also be doing these things as the prince that shall come. Contrasted with Messiah the prince, who will be doing these in the kingdom, the prince that shall come will be doing these things in the 70th week. The prince's part. Let's start in Ezekiel 44. What is the prince that shall come going to be doing in the 70th week as the one who comes in the place of Christ? Then he brought me back the way of the gate of the outer sanctuary, which looketh toward the east. It was shut. The Lord said unto me, this gate shall be shut, it shall not be opened, no man shall enter in by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, hath entered in by it, therefore it shall be shut. It is for the prince. The prince, he shall sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate. He shall go out by the same way. Let's look at more about the prince, okay? Talking about, in Ezekiel 45, talking about the length of the holy portion of the land, offering of oblations, the size and breadth of the sanctuary, the temple. Ezekiel 45 has measurements also. It says, let's see, we'll start in verse 7 of chapter 45. A portion shall be for the prince on one side, and on the other side of the oblation of the holy portion of the possession of the city, before the oblation of the holy portion, before the possession of the city, from the west side westward, the east side eastward. The length shall be over against one of the portions from the west border unto the east border. Okay, well, the prince was referenced. And the land shall be his possession in Israel, and my princes shall no more oppress my people. The rest of the land shall they give to the house of Israel according to the tribes. Thus saith the Lord God, let it suffice you, O princes of Israel, remove violence and spoil, execute judgment and justice, take away your exactions from my people, saith the Lord God. You shall have just balances and an ephah and a just bath. So this is temple practices that he's talking about. The ephah and the bath shall be one measure. The bath, talking about the weight of the shekel and how many shekels are to be offered. Verse 15 of Ezekiel 45, one lamb out of the flock, out of 200, out of the fat pastures of Israel, for a meat offering, for a burnt offering, for peace offerings, to make reconciliation for them, saith the Lord God. All the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince in Israel. And it shall be the prince's part. Pay special attention to this. What will the prince that shall come in the place of Christ, the rider on the white horse, Revelation 6, be doing during the first part of the 70th week? It shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths, in all the solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering, the meat offering, the burnt offering, the peace offerings, to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. Prince Lawful. Because not only does God show himself mighty and overt on behalf of Israel to say, look, here I am on the world stage, out of fear, out of respect, whatever the reason being, Israel gets her place among the nations. She gets her temple. She gets her sacrificial system. She gets her altar. She gets all of the Mosaic statutes back, and she gets the prince that shall come in the place of her true Messiah to do all these things for her. In the midst of the week, the lawful practices cease because King Beast has ascended from the bottomless pit and laid waste to that whole system. He's caused all of the lawful practices to cease, which include the temple worship, and he's caused desolation at the temple. Prince Lawful, the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6, is the guy who sets all of the old covenant things back up. And the beast from Revelation 13 is the one who tears them all down. They are not the same. The prince that shall come, Revelation 6, 1 and 2, he shall confirm the covenant with Israel for 1 week. Temple, sacrificial system, statutes, old covenant resumption, all of that stuff. In the midst of the week, the beast shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Daniel 7, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom were the first 3 horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things, a bad and Apollyon, proclaiming itself to be above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. What happens to him? I beheld them because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. They are not the same, and they could not be the same, because the rider on the white horse starts the 70th week, and the beast cannot possibly ascend out of the bottomless pit until it's open, which doesn't even happen until trumpet 5. But is specifically stated as doing so amidst the 6th trumpet in Revelation 11. And then is said to be given power to continue 40 and 2 months. He opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And this is where we will pick up with and round out Daniel 11. So hopefully you understand why I said what I said, because I said what I said. Daniel 11:36. The king, not the prince that shall come, the king of the locust, the angel of the bottomless pit, so named in Revelation 9:11. He's the 4th beast. The king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. Oddly enough, that was the title of my 5th book, for that is determined shall be done. It talked about, specifically, the chapters going through the midpoint of the week, Revelation 10 through 15, backtrack to Revelation 9 to introduce the beast, specifically to introduce the locust army, because that is a locust army destroying the land of the people in Israel. Joel 1 and 2, Jesus returns in Joel 3. I went through line by line the whole book of Joel in that book also, talked about Daniel's sabbatical cycles, and told you when he's coming back, because that was a fun book to write. Specifically title taken from Daniel 11:36, for that is determined shall be done. Going back to the beast, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers. That's a capital G God. He's the angel of the bottomless pit. Abaddon Apollyon. Keep that in mind when you're reading this. He's the king of the locust, the angel of the bottomless pit. So he's not going to regard God, nor the desire of women. That's a reference to Jesus Christ. It was the desire of all Jewish women to bear the Messiah. So the desire of women is Jesus Christ, to be the mother of Jesus Christ. Nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. In his estate, means in his form, he shall honor the God of forces, a God whom his fathers knew not, shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things, God of fortresses. the interesting part about that is that's a reference to things that he's going to take from the temple. One of the things that we learn about in the book of Daniel is that when Israel got carted off captive to Babylon, they basically sacked the temple and took all of the godly instruments from the temple and then kind of had a heyday with them. You learn about Belshazzar in Daniel 5 being judged for that because they were toasting their own gods with the sacred vessels from the holy God's temple. And the holy God said no. And then he destroyed Belshazzar, and the Medes and Persians took him over that same night. This guy's going to do the same thing. He's going to sack the temple. He's not going to be destroyed, but he's going to take all of the holy things out of it and use them for unholy purposes. This is part of the judgment that will be wrought on these people at the end of the 70th week for what they do amidst the midpoint of the 70th week when the beast descends out of the bottomless pit. Now, I understand that there is a lot of confusion about what the covenant is, and I spent a great deal of time talking about that when we went through Daniel 9, and I started a whole book about that. Daniel 70 weeks. It goes through the whole chapter of Daniel 9, and it talks about what the covenant is, because Daniel plainly tells you it's the old covenant. It's the Mosaic law and all the statutes, the corresponding temple, the reinstitution of the corresponding sacrificial system. All of that follows on the heels of the Battle of Gog and Magog, because the first thing they're going to want to do after they see that God exists is to honor him in the only way they know how, which is under Old Covenant. Part of causing the sacrifice and oblation to cease is destroying the covenant relationship between God and Israel. Can't save him anyway. So that's God's way of saying, I can't save you that way. I need to stop you. So I'm going to allow this guy to do it, but I'm going to save a remnant of you who are going to listen to me, and I'm going to eventually bring you through the fire and save them. So the midpoint of the week events are God's way of saying, if I didn't put a stop to this or allow a stop to be put to this, you would just continue on doing the wrong thing indefinitely, and more of you would die. You would never be saved. If you enable someone to continue doing the wrong thing, there's never going to be a reason for them to want to stop. Only through force. So God doesn't stop them. He allows this other guy to stop them, which suits his purpose, because he can't save them if they just keep being enabled to do the wrong thing continually. They must be made to stop. That's the purpose of the beast causing it to stop, is bringing them to a point where they can no longer do the wrong thing. They don't understand yet what the right thing is, but they can no longer do the wrong thing any longer because it's been forcibly stopped. And then the temple implements and all that will be cast lots for and all that. We're actually going to go to the book of Joel to discuss the judgment that will be reaped upon these people. Let's see here. There we go. When Jesus returns at the second coming, related to things that the people do regarding the temple and the Jews who don't flee. Talk about them in just a second. But there's a lot of confusion about what the covenant is that starts the 70th week, and there are a good many people, because of current events, who think it's going to be some kind of a land for peace. That's not true. It does not mean that there will never be a division of the land. There will be, but it's not what starts the 70th week, and it's not got anything to do with the covenant that is Daniel 9:27. After the beast does his abomination of desolation and the Jews scatter, the ones who stay behind are going to be killed and or carted off captive into strange lands. What happens to Israel after that point is that essentially everything that is holy, God's holy temple, God's holy land, will be scattered and parted lot, will be divided and cast lots upon and scattered. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds of the strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. There will be a division of land, but it will not be to start the 70th week. And like I said, it won't actually be pertinent to the covenant at all. It will simply occur on account of the beast saying, It's my land. I'll do what I want. These are now my people. I will do what I want with them. If I want to kill them, if I want to enslave them, whatever I want to do. And then he basically snubs his nose and blasphemes God and says, what are you going to do? At the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. He shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. Before I continue on, I do want to talk about this division of the land for gain. Remember in Matthew 24, when Jesus said the everlasting gospel was going to be preached, the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached as a witness to all nations, and then the end shall come. Then he talked about the abomination of desolation, told them that that unless their days should be shortened in Jerusalem by the flight out, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake or the remnant's sake, those days shall be shortened because they're going to fly out, be flown out. That's where we get to Daniel 12:1. Michael's going to stand up. The great prince, which stands for the children of the people. He's the wings of the great eagle, the great prince, the wings of the great eagle that flies Israel into her place where she's going to be nourished for a time times half a time from the face of the serpent. So they're safe in the wilderness. All bets are off from everyone else. The 2 witnesses have been removed. The 144,000 have been removed. Remnant safe and preserved. Literally, all bets are off for everyone else. All bets are off. The angels have flown through the midst of the heaven, giving the warning, fear God and worship Jesus. Don't worship the beast, the image of the beast, or take his mark. People are going to make their choices in mass event. There's going to be a whole bunch of people that die, that are killed because they don't do those things. And the rest of them are going to be like living robots that can't die and will wish that they could because the judgments are so horrible. When Jesus returns 3.5 years later, Joel 3:1. For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Parted my land? Midpoint of the 70th week, what the beast does. Thus shall he do, Daniel 11:39. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. Yes, there will be judgment for that. But it's not what the covenant is that starts the 70th week. It's what happens on account of the beast rising to power, is that he divides Israel after the events of the 7th trumpet, after the events of the midpoint of the 70th week. The judgment in the valley of decision is the judgment for that action. They have cast lots for my people. They have given a boy for an harlot, sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, ye coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head, because ye have taken my silver and my gold out of the temple after it's desolated, after they scatter. It's part of the scattering the things that are holy and that are his and parting his land. He's going to judge them for that. Because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried into your temple my goodly pleasant things. The children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that you may remove them far from their border. You don't get to scatter my people. You don't get to part my land, and you don't get to use my temple implements for your own purpose. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. I'm coming back, and you're not going to make it. Prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all of the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, your pruning hooks into spear. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, where there I will sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for the wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be darkened. The stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion. utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. That's how Daniel 11 ends. The beast, he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. But let's read the verses that come before that. After they scatter Israel, the people part the land, sell off cart the temple treasures away and do their own heathen things with them. At the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind in chariots and with horsemen. And with many ships he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. Why will Edom, Moab, and Ammon escape from the destruction at the hands of the Antichrist? That's interesting. We'll get to that in a second. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, over all the precious things of Egypt. The Libyans, the Ethiopians shall be at his steps, but tidings out of the east, out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. He shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. He's not going to make it. The last thing I want to address is, why do Edom and Moab escape out of the hand of the beast during the 70th week? Numbers 24. This is a specific judgment. Balaam and Balak. The king of the chief of the Moabites was trying to get a curse laid upon Israel. And Balaam couldn't curse Israel. Balak, the king of the Moabites, wanted to curse Israel because he had seen their mighty deeds among the people, the Canaanite tribes. And he's like, I don't want them to hurt me. So I want them cursed so that they become weak or, whatever, and they can't overthrow me. They can't hurt me. But Balaam and God were tight, and God said, no, I'm not going to let you curse Israel, Balaam. So Balaam had to keep going back to Balak and delivering the message that God would not allow him to curse Israel because they hadn't done anything wrong. So eventually he's like, let's just let Israel intermingle with the Moabites, and we'll just let them start making poor choices and start becoming lawless all on their own rather than cursing them. So the moral of that story was bad company corrupts good character, because the Israelites had no business intermingling with the Moabites who were heathen, but they did. And then God wound up, there were thousands, tens of thousands destroyed because they became lawless. And as a recompense for that, Mr. Balak, who was the king of the Moabites, he brought a curse down upon his own head. This is why the beast in the 70th week is not going to be allowed to destroy Edom and Moab and Ammon, because Moab is going to be destroyed by Jesus himself on account of what Balak did to the Israelites. Edom is going to be judged directly by Jesus, not by the beast, because Edom is the people of Esau, whom God hated, because Edom sold his birthright. Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. So he's going to be dealt with directly by Jesus too. Numbers 24. Verse 16. He has said which heard the words of God and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. And Edom shall be a possession, Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. And then it goes on to talk about Amalek and them. Edom and Moab do not escape the hand. They do escape the hand of the beast, because they won't escape the hand of Jesus, who's going to deal with them directly, per Numbers 24. So that is the rest of Daniel 11 pertaining to the beast. I hope that I have answered your questions sufficiently. He shall be destroyed without hand. Yes. That comes from Daniel 8. Yes, the magnify himself above against the prince of princes and shall be destroyed without hand, broken without hand. Yep. And this is talking about the beast. Daniel 8 prophesied. In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, this is the fourth beast, shall, and understanding dark sentences, shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not his own power. Why? Well, because in Revelation 13, it tells you the dragon gives him his seat and his power and great authority. So his power shall be mighty, but not his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify himself in his heart. Remember the beast who goes into the temple of God, declaring himself to be above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. He shall magnify himself in his heart. By peace he shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, and he shall be broken without hand. Yes, speak a word and you're going to die. This is also what we learn about in Revelation 17 of the beast and the 10 kings. The beast that was and is not, he is the eighth and is of the seven and goeth into perdition. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as of yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. That 1 hour is used to combine forces to destroy Babylon. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength to the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are called with him are called and chosen and faithful. The Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. So this is all tied together, all very closely tied together. If you have any questions or comments at all, any feedback, let me know. When next we meet, we will conclude the book of Daniel by going through Daniel 12. That's fun because it talks about the sealed book. What is that? Who does it pertain to? Michael, the great prince, is going to help Israel get to the wilderness in the midpoint of the week. And it gives us day counts, 1260, 1290, 1335. What are all those? We will discuss. I'll see you guys later.